Well, Mike, 13 states already say that the president's another unconstitutional overreach in trying to require transgender friendly restrooms. Is this something that's really going to happen? Are we really going to have males, females in all of our bathrooms in schools?
Pardon me, plus locker rooms, plus sports teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of it. It's being hoisted upon us by the president. And let's be clear about this at the very beginning, Aaron. The Obama directive, the decree, whatever we want to call it, it violates the constitutional principles of federalism and states' rights. And there is no provision of federal law that allows the president to take these actions. But he's doing it anyway, unilaterally, So what we did in Louisiana, the reason we weren't listed on that list of 13 states from the news story last night is because our governor issued an executive order a month earlier than the Obama directive that effectively does the same thing. So, our governor's in agreement, apparently. So I authored a letter that was co-signed by 32 legislators, and we issued that on Friday, seeking a formal opinion by our state attorney general, Jeff Landry, about whether or not we have to, these new rules that are apparently being imposed upon us have to be or can be enforceable in Louisiana. I think the answer is no, and the attorney general is going to issue some directive this morning or some guidance on it for all of our school districts, because everybody's confused.
Yeah. Mike, let me ask you this, and this is real personal. Your son comes home, says he really feels like he's a girl, and he gets teased at school all the time, and he really wants to go use the girls' bathroom. What do you tell that child? Because these children are getting teased, they're getting bullied at school. Will this other bathroom thing, will that help that at all?
Here's the answer, Aaron. Look, I have all the other legislators who signed this letter, everybody involved in this. We have long advocated that everybody has to be treated equally and fairly. I'm for that, right? Every person deserves respect and dignity as a human being because all of us are endowed with inalienable rights and inestimable value by our Creator. But at the same time, we have to apply common sense. I mean, I believe that keeping the sexes separate for purposes of bathroom and locker room access is important. It's important for the privacy and the safety of our children and the adults in our state as well. And so we're just asking for the application of a little bit of common sense here, and you're opening a Pandora's box when you do this. You're inviting trouble and making things worse than they already are.
Mike, in the DOJ Department of Education letter that all the school districts across America have gotten, from what I have read from taking a look at it, although it's pretty legal looking, there is no real criterion. There's no guidelines for what actually constitutes transgender. So if a 16-year-old high school boy says he's transgender and he can get somebody of some authority in his life to back that up, he doesn't have to have undergone any kind of surgery, any kind of hormonal treatments, anything. A 16-year-old boy, that is anatomically a 16-year-old boy, according to Barack Obama and the DOJ and the DOE,
He can play softball?
showers in the girls' locker.
All of that. That's exactly right, and that's the problem. These terms are vague, unconstitutionally vague, by the way. Gender identity, no one knows what that means. And even an effort to define it is going to even cause more problems. So, yeah, look, Robert, I went to Captain Shreve High School. I graduated in 1990. My crew, my boys, I mean, look, I can tell you, they would have just said, hey, next Thursday is Gender Identity Day, man. We're going to self-identify as girls, and we're going to be in the other locker room. I mean, it opens it up to hijinks and all sorts of problems. And we're already receiving calls, by the way, calls and emails and all sorts of contact from school officials and parents and business owners and constituents all over the district, all over the state. They're deeply concerned about the implications and the effects of all this, and it's unprecedented.
Mike, let me ask you this. Is the president, the federal government, are they threatening money if we don't do this?
Well, give us a reset. Tell everybody what this is if they're just joining us.
Transgender bathrooms, making bathrooms in schools, locker rooms, etc., accessible to either gender, however you identify yourself.
Yeah, well, so the president is implying that you will not get any further federal funding for your school district if you don't immediately enact some policy to, adopt this new decree. But look, a decree isn't a law, and the threat of a penalty doesn't ensure a penalty. So I've encouraged school districts to simply refuse to comply with this nonsense. It's an overreach. There's no federal law that allows the president to do this. And so I went so far as to offer to represent any Louisiana school district free of charge that wants to challenge the executive order in court, because I believe we can win it. Now, I don't think it will come to that, because I think what may happen, the development that should occur today. I talked to Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry last night, and he said they're going to issue guidance this morning in response to our letter of request. And they're going to give some guidance to school districts all around the state. And I think that what it's going to say is you do not have to comply, and the state will have your back. So there'll be a number of avenues to resist this, and I think we ought to do exactly that.
Mr. Mike, let's look at it in the sense that a high school locker room or shower or sports team is the micro. Let's look at the macro and what our government says about, well, let me phrase it this way. I phrased it this way. Are we willing to abandon genetic and biological fact in favor of a person's own preferred self-image? Or, making it a little more succinct, what determines reality, fact, or feelings?
That's exactly right, and that's where we're headed. And I'm glad you asked about the big picture on this, because, Robert, that's the message. I mean, we can't allow any radical political agenda to jeopardize the safety of our kids, or force the vast majority of citizens to sacrifice decency and common sense just because some elected official decrees it. I mean, that's not who we are in this country. If you want to change the law, if you don't like the way things are, you're supposed to do it by broad social consensus. In a constitutional republic, you're supposed to go and convince your neighbors and your friends, take it to the ballot box, do it at the election cycle. You're not supposed to be able to do it as some emperor. You can't just, wave a wand and change things as they are. It doesn't work that way. That's not who we are. And I've made this point several times over the last few days. Our children have a fundamental right to bodily privacy, and as a parent, I have an obligation before God to protect them. All of us do. And so we've got to stand up for that. Everyone who will look at this in a common sense way will agree with us. And it's time to draw a line in the sand and say enough is enough.
Mike, let me ask you this. Let's say there's a boy who he really is, he feels like a girl, and he actually dresses like a girl and goes to school. Can't schools can't these individual cases, can't they use the teacher's lounge? Can't schools find another alternative rather than imposing changes that would impact everyone?
For the 0.007% or whatever that meager statistic is, where that's the situation, that's the case, Erin, that's exactly how it has been handled. This has not been a big problem across the country. You don't hear about situations like this because they're simply non-existent. But if there is some aberration, some rare case like the one you described, then they make an accommodation. They let the kid use the teacher's lounge restroom. There is no reason for the president or the governor or anyone else to issue an order that just changes every definition in society. That's not how we do it, and that's why it's unconstitutional, it's unlawful, and we have to resist it.
So glad we're spending so much time talking about this instead of the budget, aren't you, Mike?
Well, I was just going to say, I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and I'm thinking, while all this is going on, what you really wonder, not to get way off track, well, while all this is going on, you wonder what they're doing when no one's looking.
Yep, that's a very good question to ask, and we have huge problems facing us on the budget and everything else. All hands are on the wheel, but this kind of stuff happens, and it's look over here. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and it's a scary situation. And look, elections have consequences. One of the reactions that we should have with this is I think every citizen should let their elected representatives know exactly how they feel about this, because it does make a difference. And you've got to take your frustrations out at the ballot box. This fall, we cannot overstate the importance of these elections. And, maybe I should just leave it at that.